Right, guys, let's continue with our setup of Laravel. The first thing I would like to fix is to be able to use Composer as a non-root user. So no need to write all the time sudo in front of Composer. And this will set up with the following command. So we are just changing the ownership, and we are placing our user as an owner of the executive directory of Composer, which is Composer vendor bin. And we do this recursively for all the files and directories which this directory contain. Okay, after executing this command, we will be able, without sudo, to type just Composer and to run the binary. Okay, that's what's a little bit of adjustment setup. And now we'll continue. Let's set up our database, which we'll use in a moment. For this, we'll open up Visual Studio Code. And here we have, as you can see, a lot of files and directories. But for now, we are interested in .env file. In this section, we are describing our database connection. So I advise you to place here Laravel as a database, because we have this database already set up with the user Laravel and the password of password. This is important to be able to connect to this IP address and this port where resides our MariaDB server. The next thing we'll do is to see how we'll customize this Visual Studio Code in order to have easier development time. So let's require two packages which will make our life easier. We'll open up a terminal here. Inside of the terminal, we'll just type Composer require. We'll place the package in the dev dependencies and bari vdh Laravel IDE helper. And I've already installed this package. Why I recommend this package? Because actually it will help us when we are trying to invoke certain methods which are hidden, let's say, inside of facades or are belonging to models, and we need this package in order to generate documentation about our code. After installing the package, just type php artisan and we will use IDE helper, and then we'll type generate, and we see that we have generated one IDE helper .php file. Then again the same command here with meta, and one with models to be recognizable, and here no write in order not to update our models but to write the configuration into a separate file, and this is IDE helper models file. Okay, once we have those, actually we'll go to extensions, and here I recommend the following extensions for you to place inside of Visual Studio Code. Auto import, Laravel 5 snippets, then you have Laravel blade snippets, Laravel extra IntelliSense, Laravel go to view, PHP debug, PHP IntelliSense, PHP namespace resolver. Actually, exactly this plugin will be able to parse all those files and to help us while developing our code. One more thing, if you would like those documentations to be updated the moment we are generating new models or installing new packages, we will need to go to our composer.json file. So you go to scripts, and in the end I will place all those commands that we just used: generate, meta, and models with no write. So this will automatize the process for us. Okay, let's explain what is a sample workflow in Laravel. The framework uses model, view, and controller pattern for its main structure. So everything here is placed under the directory application. Our JavaScript and CSS generated files will be placed under the public directory, and then we have JS and CSS files. Also we have the main index.php inside. They are generated from the resources folder by using npm and certain internal scripts, which we will look very soon. Once a user is requesting a certain resource, it has to be described inside of routes. So we have web.php here. This is the main file where we're describing those resources. We see that whenever we are reaching the main route, we are loading up a view. So we are not passing through a controller, but directly to a view. And let's follow where is this view. Thanks to our helpers, we can just use Control and click, and we're opening this view. So it's placed inside of resources, views, and here we see the welcome.blade.php. Blade is the templating system of Laravel. Here inside you can see the sample document, the meta tags, some fonts are loading up, some CSS internally placed, and of course some links, and this is our HTML. Actually, this is the content of our starting page, this one. All right. So this is very simple way of flow in Laravel. We have one route, and directly we are loading up a view. Most commonly, in the middle between those two processes, we have controllers. And if we go to app, HTTP and controllers, so here we are placing our controllers. And if you want to interact with databases, the team of Laravel has chosen to place their models directly under the app directory. And here we have such user.php model where we are describing certain fields. And actually we can communicate here with the database and later use this communication inside of our controllers. And from there we see that the home controller can invoke a view, and this view is home view. So the path is, we're having routes, then we are having controllers which communicate with models and render views. All right, for even easier illustration of the process, again from the same author, we'll use another package, Laravel Debugbar. Again, we're pasting it inside of the development section of our composer.json file. So here we see that the Debugbar is being installed. Now let's see what this extension does. If we go to our browser and refresh, we see here this bar. Actually, why it is helpful for us, because inside, let's say that we're on a certain page, we click on the views and we see directly on which view are we here in this page. Also, we can follow database queries and routes. We see here the default route, where it goes, the namespaces it uses, and where it's described. So in this file web.php, we can follow it up. If you don't want to navigate through all the files, you can save a time by just pressing Ctrl P and then just type web.php, and we see directly our file here, so no need to navigate here on the left. And if we followed up the lines 14 to 16, that's exactly our route. So that's a very helpful utility which directly can help you to visualize what's going on inside of the rendering engine of Laravel. If you would like to go now back to the previous file, we can just press Ctrl Alt and minus, and we are left with the previous edited file. And many times we are looking for specific information and we don't know in which file we can find it. For this we can use the combination Ctrl Shift and F, and then if we type, for example, welcome, Visual Studio Code will search inside of all the project files and actually will show us the file and the string it has found inside. So it's super useful when developing code to have this in mind. Okay, so we can just click and we open again the file where this has been found. If you prefer using the terminal for debugging purposes, there is one interesting command. Inside of our browser we see what kind of routes we are using currently, but we can also use the terminal by typing PHP artisan route list, and this will give us all the routes Laravel has right now inside attached. So what can we understand from this information? Actually, for example, here we have the main route and it has been used with a get method, and then a certain closure is executed. What do I mean is that this anonymous function has been executed. We are not executing a controller, but we see that when we are invoking a home URL by the get method, we will go to home controller and we'll go to its index action. How can we see this here? So we can just find the URI of home. It's here. So we are browsing via the get method. Here is the name also. And then we go to the home controller and its index action. In front of the home controller we have the namespace. So we are inside app, HTTP controllers, home controller. Namespaces are useful because they allow us to have same named controllers without creating a chaos and duplication issues. That's why they uniquely identify a certain controller here. And if we would like to follow what is inside of this home controller, we just go to HTTP. It's inside here. Let's check what is inside of its index action, and we are forwarded to the home view. So that's basically how you can navigate inside of Laravel project. So we are here. Let's open this home controller. So just we'll add here home, and we have installed a certain mechanism of prevention to look at this home controller unless we have username and password. We can follow up here in the debug bar where we are, the namespace, that we are right now in the login controller and show login form. So that's the controller action which renders this element. From the views, we are on the login.blade.php. If you'd like, we can change a little bit the logic. Here we see one construct function. It's a default function which will be run before any other functions inside of this controller. So it's used for primarily initialization. And here we see that we have middleware, which is, let's say, we are preventing our further execution of the request by appending authentication. If we just command this line and refresh our home URL, we see that directly we can enter and use this resource. Another useful tip here for debugging is that we can use dump or die function. Inside we can say hello, and if we refresh, we see that we are just outputting debug information and stopping the execution afterwards. And if we are still unsure on where we are, actually we can use the same function by just using here method, a special constant. And when we save and refresh, we see that we are in app HTTP controllers home controller, and it's construct function. So that was the basic setup of our environment. If you have enjoyed the information so far, you can subscribe to the channel.